everyone, it's Helene here with Cabin Fever Crochet, and I am bringing you today my first ever tutorial. I hope you like it. I hope it is helpful. And this goes back to episode 7, a couple videos back, when I had talked to you about the really lovely little Chevron crochet cowl by Zeens and Roger that I really enjoyed working up and how the colors played out. The only thing that I wasn't thrilled about is this highly visible outside join and seam. And as I had mentioned in my video to stay tuned for this one that I'm doing today to show you what I did after playing around and playing around with it, trying to come up with a way to where it blended more. And you may like the way this is perfectly fine, and that's great. Everyone is different, but we often do our own twist on things and the way that we like them, and I would just like to share with you what I did with mine. And it also corrected, and please, if you worked this up, please tell me if you had a similar issue to where the join is. I found that it pulled the yarn down and it created this dip of a high and low here. And I hope that you're going to be able to see everything I'm doing. The way I'm set up, I cannot see myself and my work, so I'm going to just be really careful to keep everything in center view here. And hope that works out. And I apologize for any shaking of my camera, computer, and I'm working with what I have, the equipment, and doing the best that I'm able to. Okay, so this was my very first one that I did according to pattern with the Loops and Threads Madrid, a discontinued yarn. And the first cowl that I did with my closing version, which still needed room for improvement, also is a little bit darker color, so I wanted to show you something where you could see that really well. But I actually had to leave my tail because I thought that the join is so clean and not totally seamless, but I think in comparison, here is the join, if you are able to see that, where it begins, goes down to the V, the chevron portion, and then back up to the top. And on the inside of it, you can see that in this dark color, pardon for little dog hairs, there is a seam here, but it blends in enough. It lays relatively flat. The only way that you're going to get completely away from that is if you do, say, a mattress seam join, and that's perfectly fine. You can join it however you want to. This was just my personal way and what I liked. So these colors, this is Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn in antique rose, and they have a stone wash line, and this is the berry stone wash. And the seam seems to join, like that seam the best with, though, a variegated or even this mottled color. But I will show you in my latest version that I'm going to work on and show you how I finish that. That is in a solid color. I think it works out pretty well too. But I still had the issue. Now this was my own. I just did that too loose, so I will own that. But there still is an issue, and particularly, I think this, you can see it on this side as well, where it dips down. So I wanted to work and correct that as much as possible because the rest of the work is straight, and I wanted all of it to be as similar as possible. Now I did another. This was a set. I still had the issue with that, so because I didn't want to redo the whole entire piece, and I had already made the hat, which I thought turned out quite cute. I thought, well, let me just add on a border and see what I can do to even up those edges. And what I did on this one This is again Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn in the color Meadow Dance, and in the same yarn I did a single crochet, chain one, single crochet, chain one all the way around. In the areas where it dipped down really low, instead of a single crochet, I might have done a half double crochet here and there instead, and just that extra stitch created just a bit of height to help even it all the way around. Now my next row I did just one round of double crochet and then finished off by front post double crochet, single crochet, front post double, single all the way around, which is the same stitch I did here. And by doing the single crochet instead of a back post, it's very smooth on the inside. You have less gapping, keeps the ears warm here. So I wanted that to be the same. And this is Heartland Denali yarn, the pink. And what I like about that has a bit of a sheen, whereas the I Love This Yarn does not. So it creates a little bit more depth and dimension, where anywhere in color where you have light or where it's shiny, it's going to pull and lift that out. My dog drinking water. And any place where it's matte or it's dark, it's going to tend to recede and push that back a little bit. So I'm pleased, really pleased. I love the colors. I think it's real happy. And this one is just super squishy by adding that extra soft Heartland yarn in there. So the one I'm working on, I did a combination, and you can see with all the color changes, there were, oh, I'm so sorry about that. I've got to do a little adjustment here. I had it pretty good. I actually already filmed this, and then at the very end, one kind of little important point, I was too high and it completely cut it off, and I just decided to redo the whole thing and try and tighten it all up a little bit. Okay, so this is in, I believe it is called Sea Mist. I love this yarn. It's their number 4 worsted yarn. And this is one I had, I think it was a discontinued. It's the same yarn in some kind of camo type color, but it's much more coarse than all the other. So what I did was I separated each by one row of Red Heart Soft and Blanco. And I'm really pleased, and even though I had a bunch of ends, because whenever there's a color change, you're going to have 2 ends to do, but really it didn't take that long. I watched some YouTube, and before I know it, I was done. Maybe it took me half an hour to do the sewing the ends on the whole entire piece. So one of the most important things that you will need to do is whatever color you choose, however many rows, doesn't matter, just begin and end with the same color. Because again, regardless of which stitch or technique that you use to join, even if you go with the original, it's going to help blend it and be more seamless if your colors are the same. And I did 5 rows of each main color separated by 1 row of the off-white. So in order to get my same 5 and end, and it really doesn't matter how many you start with as long as your numbers come out the same, but I just chose to do the majority of it. I did 4 rows starting with the Sea Mist, and then all I needed to do was end with 1 row to get my 5. So you want to turn your work inside out, have your right sides together and your wrong side out. So that way your seam is going to be on the inside of your work. We're going to do this. It's really, really quite simple. We're just going to do it a little bit differently. So get your yarn. Make sure that you have plenty of working yarn already nice and loose and available to you, because we're going to be slip stitching and chaining, and you don't want to have it cinched tight, because as you do that across, whether it be your chains or your slip stitches, it's going to cause the work to bunch up. So you do not want your chains to be sloppy, but you don't want them to be tight either. So just keep them free and kind of loose-ish and fluid. So we're going to chain 2, okay? Chain 2, and slip stitch to the top of the chain 3, and I count from the bottom because your beginning chains had more stitches in them. And don't confuse your chain 3 with the stitch that belongs to the double crochet. So 1, 2, 3. Join the 2 together. Okay? I'm going to chain 2 again. Go under and through the space, not through the stitches, but go under and through both spaces, the space on each side, each section, and slip stitch the 2 together. Now we're going to chain 4, which accounts for your first 3 double crochets, is going to give you that bridge, that extra chain will give you that bridge to get you over to the next space, and we're only going to do a chain 4 at the beginning, the first, and then at the end. So again, this is all you do. You're going to chain 4, go through, under, through both spaces, and slip stitch. Now you're just going to chain 3. And by chaining 4, it just helped everything lay flat and gives you that nice straight edge across. Okay, chain 3, and make sure you're lined up, that you don't accidentally miss one. And if it helps you, if you want to mark your center points on each side, each section, that you're putting together, feel free to do so. Okay, again, chain 3, and again, don't cinch that work down tight. Slip stitch together, and that's what you're going to do all the way across. And I'm going to do that rather than stop because I think it would just be faster, and it's the same thing that you do. Sorry if you're coughing in the background. Okay, now just separate, put your hook in between your split, your center split. Don't go through your stitches, go underneath, and do the same on the other side. Now I actually goofed my first row here on the other side. They should be closer together like that. So we're just going to pretend they are, and let's just for demo's sake here, I'm going to pretend for a quick sec that this is the first row. So you go through the split and underneath. And make sure you go under, that you're not going through the chain there, but you go underneath, okay? But when it's together, really, you can't even tell. You can see how that's probably a little too loose, and now I cinched that one down tight. It's just not really fiddly, but just slightly. It's take your time with it. It works up pretty quickly. Okay, chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, slip stitch, chain 3, and when I get to the end, I'm going to just tell you that, as I cannot crochet and talk at the same time. Look at that, here we are already. Most of it was talking, So chain 4. Now depending on your tension, you may need to put in an extra chain, a 5th one. Depending on your tension, the size of your hook and your yarn that you're working with, and also depending on which side you end up, because they're not always going to be perfectly even. And the stitches, and especially if you mix yarns, as you can see, this variegated that is more coarse kind of like the Red Heart Super Saver in a way, which I don't particularly, it's too rough on my hands. But anyway, you know, that is thinner than, you can just tell it's thinner than the Red Heart Soft, and even a little bit thinner than this other Hobby Lobby, which is the same type of yarn. So you may need to add in a 5th stitch. As long as you make that bridge across to put your ends together so that these last 3 double crochets don't wind up bunching together and they'll pucker and poof up on the other side. So once you do your chain 4, then you're going to slip stitch together, go to the top of your chain 3. If you go through on your ends instead of the chain 3, is what's going to pull the top of the work down and give you that dip. So I found by going to the top of chain 3, and again, don't think that this is your chain 3, because this is the stitch that belongs to that last double crochet. So that's why I count from the bottom and go up. These I went into the top. Oops, almost forgot this partner over here. This, if I try to turn it and go through the top, because that's the other side, so the top part is facing that way, it'll twist it. So I'm just going to go through those 2, slip stitch all the way through. Just chain 1 for now to lock that in. Turn the work right side out and just check it and make sure that it lays flat, that it's not puckering. Because when I chained 3, this puckered and it bunched up and it poofed up. And you might, what does it say, is that you might need to do a chain 5. It just depends. If you're using thinner yarn, maybe you only need a chain 3. But by doing you've got this really pretty similar spaces on the end. This creates that ridge, that illusion with the rest of them. The chain 3 gives that open space like you have with the rest, and instead of it being, they're just butted up back to back, and then it's just going to look like one big crochet. So, and it still retains the drape, and by slip stitching the 2 top of your chain 3s together also creates a nice smooth edge. And you can do a little border if you like, or not. I probably will. I think it's fine this way, but I want to make another little hat, and I'm just going to play around and probably do something similar as I did with the other one. So that is it. There you have it. I hope that you like that, and I think that it's just my take on it, doing something a little bit different. And I think that any type of granny that you're turning, not necessarily any type, but a basic granny like that you are turning into a cowl or an infinity scarf. This is a technique. I haven't tried it on anything else, but I don't see why it could not be applied to another project that is similar. Okay, well, please let me know what you think. I hope I did okay with that, being my very first tutorial. Take care, my friends, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and whatever is going on in your world, try to take pleasure in even the most simplest of things that will bring you a little bit of joy. And until next time, cheers.